Courage is a virtue deeply rooted in our society and one that many people are encouraged to achieve. Though, is courage a negative or positive trait, and to what extent do morals affect this? Courage can be defined as the ability to do something that one strongly fears. This very broad definition can be applied to many things, both good and bad. Courage is implemented in people's lives by encouraging them to do something that they fear and to face the challenges that stand in their path. Of course, this sounds like something that is much needed in a modern society in which many people are stricken down by fear. Fear is commonly defined as a negative trait by most of society, though it's important to realize why fear is a natural reaction in the first place. Fear is a warning and a signal which protects us from danger and prepares us to encounter it. Courage is a way for our bodies and minds to ignore the natural reaction of fear that protects us from harm. In the quote from Courage, an Important Virtue, the authors explain that in order to be healthy, you must have courage, and that courage psychologically enhances our minds. The authors also claim that in order to have balance and well-being, one must have courage, with well-being defined as a condition or a state of being happy, healthy, comfortable, and prosperous. So what are the overall positive aspects of courage? The first is that it helps to improve other virtues, including humanity and justice, by giving us the ability to act on our thoughts and abilities. The second is that it helps us be content in life. As stated before, in order to be both mentally and physically content, have balance, and be content in life, one must have courage. And the third is that it helps us overcome fear. Courage can help overcome tasks that we fear or would not typically feel comfortable doing. What are the negative aspects of courage for individuals? In the article, Is Courage Always a Virtue?, the author says, quote, which may explain why courage's vice of excess reactivity was engaged more in intimacy and interpersonal goals, as these may be more intrinsically meaningful to people. This quote explains how courage can cause people to act selfishly because people are more willing to complete goals if they benefit oneself rather than others, even if this does end in a negative outcome for others. This can negatively affect the people surrounding someone. An example of courage leading someone to do a dangerous activity is in the story Through the Tunnel. Through the Tunnel is a graphic example of what could potentially happen to someone in real life, as the story details a young boy who left without his mother to go rock jumping in order to prove himself as worthy to the other boys. An act of courage in which ultimately almost caused him to drown. What are the negative aspects of courage regarding society? In Moral Courage and Intelligent Disobedience, the author poses the question, did the 9/11 hijackers have moral courage? Though most people would think the answer is an obvious no, based on the definition, they must have been courageous because they completed an action and knowingly died for a cause that they believed to be truly important. Though this was courageous, they did not have moral courage as their actions were not ethical and caused other people harm. So the overall negative aspects of courage include terrorism, selfish actions, and dangerous actions. So how does morality affect courage? Morals are defined as what society deems to be right and acceptable by general societal guidelines, and it can be shown when people do something right that is not for personal benefit or convenience. In Moral Courage, a virtue in need of development, the author details how, in order to really be courageous, one's actions must be moral, saying, quote, if moral implies that which is good, then moral courage also means the courage to be ethical. This agrees with moral courage and intelligent disobedience, in which the author details why it is good for people to practice having moral courage. So, when guided by ethical moral principles, courage can be a transformative virtue. So, is courage a negative or positive trait? As with most things, there is no singular answer to this question. Depending on the context of the situation, courage has the ability to be both good and bad based on the person who possesses it. So courage must be yielded by those who possess it, because if in the hands of the wrong person, it may not end well. But courage is something that is much needed in a society, and it can help people to do good things. Ultimately, the value of courage is determined by both the actions it inspires and the moral compass that guides those actions. The first question I decided to answer was, how did your research question evolve as you moved through the research process? My answer to this question is, in the beginning of my research, I looked at whether courage was good or bad, mainly wanting to focus on why it was bad, as I wanted to bring attention to a more unpopular standpoint. Though after more research, I decided to broaden my topic more, realizing that the main factor of this was morals. From this, I decided to use the question of how much do morals affect courage? The second question I decided to answer was, what are the implications of your findings for the community? One of the implications is that the conclusion I came to can be applied to other virtues as well. For example, confidence, a trait that, while it can be good, if possessed by the wrong person or used for the wrong reasons, it can be a negative trait. So, while courage is the main example in my presentation, the conclusion that follows can be applied to other things and virtues as well.